What hurdles does the free trade area face?
Well, there are several. So, one of the biggest ones is there's a concern that some states have ratified the free trade area despite not really being supportive of free trade, and they've ratified just for power or influence at the negotiation table. One of the best examples of that, I'd say, is Nigeria. They said for a long time, for years, that they weren't going to ratify the free trade area. And yet, just 1 month before its implementation, they decided to quickly ratify it, get it over the line. But yet, they've, in regards to their trade policy, have not been implementing policies that can be seen as free trade. For over a couple of years, in recent times, they had their borders closed to their neighbors. Then they've only partially reopened them to some trade and some different types of vehicles, but not all of them. So there's concern some states have just kind of joined just to get their feet around the negotiation table and don't really care about free trade all that much. Another concern is that the amount of tariff liberalization could be watered down. As I mentioned at the beginning, for some states, it's going to be more than 9 years until their 90% of tariffs will be reduced. And a lot can change in 9 years. So there's a concern, not only could some states pull out, but also that it could potentially be watered down, especially if there's regional powerhouses such as Nigeria at the negotiation table and not being too supportive of free trade. But there's a few other issues as well. Rules of origin is quite difficult to control. So, for example, the 90% of tariffs being removed would only apply for goods that are made in Africa or have a certain percentage of their manufacturing process that has occurred in Africa. And to be honest, few countries on the continent have custom mechanisms that are effective enough to enforce these rules of origins. It's very difficult to know, if you were looking at like a shoe, for example, what percentage of a shoe was made in Rwanda versus China versus Kenya or whatever else. So it's very hard for some states and their custom mechanisms to enforce that. But ultimately, I do think the free trade area could be beneficial, but it really comes down to governments and policymakers and journalists and think tankers, both in Africa and across the world, coming together to show their support for this agreement and really try to bind African governments to the free trade area, which they ratified, so that it can't be watered down or changed in too many negative ways.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to follow us on Twitter at @the_IATP. Also, hit the like and subscribe button below and check out our website at www.theiatp.org.